The shuttle complained the entire way down, which was impressive considering it technically did not have emotions. Every vibration translated through the seat like a passive-aggressive remark. He checked the console once more, not because he needed to, but because checking things made it feel like control still existed somewhere in the universe. The planet below was a muted swirl of pale greens and dim blues, like it had once been vibrant and then reconsidered. Atmospheric stability, questionable, the onboard system announced in a tone that sounded almost pleased about it. "That's comforting," he muttered, adjusting the descent vector. "I was worried things might be predictable." He had been sent here with a single instruction wrapped in layers of official language. Eliminate the Queen. No hesitation, no improvisation, no emotional interference. He had followed orders his entire career with the kind of efficiency that made people uncomfortable. It was easier that way, simpler, cleaner. You did the thing, you left, and you didn't think too hard about the parts that tried to follow you afterward. The shuttle broke through the upper cloud layer, and the surface revealed itself in slow detail. It didn't look dead. That was the first problem. Dead worlds were straightforward. They sat quietly and did not breathe. This one seemed to inhale. He frowned. "That's probably normal." "Surface respiration detected," the system replied helpfully. "Right, of course it is." Landing was less a smooth operation and more a negotiation. The ground shifted slightly as the landing struts touched down, like it was deciding whether to cooperate. For a moment, he had the distinct and deeply unwelcome impression that the planet was aware of him specifically. He stayed still, waiting for something dramatic to happen. Nothing did. The ground settled, the shuttle powered down, and the silence that followed was thick but not hostile. "See," he said aloud, mostly to himself. "Perfectly reasonable place. Very welcoming, not unsettling at all." The hatch opened with a soft hiss, and the air that greeted him was warm, carrying a faint metallic sweetness. He stepped out carefully, boots pressing into a surface that felt firm but oddly responsive, like it remembered the shape of his weight. He did not like that. He also did not acknowledge that he did not like it. The fortress rose in the distance, if rose was the right word. It was less a structure and more an arrangement of towering, curved forms that seemed to have grown upward rather than been built. Its surface pulsed faintly, slow and steady, like a heartbeat pretending to be architecture. He activated his scanner. The device paused, then displayed a message. "Structural composition, inconclusive, emotional tone, cautious." He stared at it. Emotional tone. "Cautious," the device repeated, as if that clarified everything. "Good, I'm cautious too. We have something in common." He began walking, each step measured, controlled. The training settled over him like a second skin. Observe, adapt, proceed. The closer he got, the more the environment seemed to notice him. Subtle shifts, faint movements at the edge of his vision. Not aggressive, not welcoming either. Just aware. At the entrance, if it could be called that, the surface parted slightly, creating an opening without any visible mechanism. He stopped. "This is the part where something attacks me," he said quietly. Nothing happened. He waited a moment longer, then nodded once. "All right, that's almost worse." He stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the opening behind him sealed with a soft, almost polite motion, as if the place believed in closing doors gently for guests who might reconsider. He didn't turn around. Turning around would imply concern, and concern was one of those emotions he had professionally misplaced years ago. "Entry confirmed," the system in his suit said. "Exit currently unavailable." "Of course it is," he replied. Why would it be easy? That would ruin the atmosphere. The corridor ahead curved slightly, its surface smooth and faintly luminous, giving off a low light that felt less like illumination and more like observation. He moved forward, each step slow, deliberate. The walls seemed to shift, not visibly, not enough to prove, but just enough to make him question whether the path was staying the same or adjusting to him. He paused and looked at his scanner again. "Structural stability?" he asked. "In progress," the device responded. "That's not an answer." "It is the only answer available." He exhaled. "I miss machines that lied convincingly." A faint vibration passed through the floor, subtle but undeniable. He stilled hand hovering near his weapon. The vibration repeated, this time slightly out of rhythm, like something trying to match a pattern it didn't fully understand. Heartbeat, he muttered. Correction, the system said. Multiple synchronized pulsations detected. Right, that's worse. He continued deeper, and the corridor widened into a larger chamber where the surfaces layered over each other in curved, overlapping arcs. There were no visible defenses, no obvious threats. Just the quiet, unsettling sense of being watched by something that hadn't decided what it thought of him yet. He turned slowly, scanning. Anyone here planning to attack me? He asked. Silence. Good, let's keep it that way. Something brushed against his mind. Not physically. Not even in a way he could point to. It was more like a thought passing too close, like overhearing a word you weren't meant to catch. He froze. No, he said under his breath. We are not doing that. The sensation returned, stronger this time. A flicker of something unfamiliar, an image maybe. A vast sky that wasn't this one. A feeling of movement, not forward but away, always away. He shook his head sharply. Focus. Cognitive irregularity detected, the system noted. Thank you, very helpful. He moved again, faster now, as if speed could outpace whatever had just brushed against him. The chamber narrowed into another passage, and as he stepped through, the wall to his left rippled slightly. He stopped mid-step, staring at it. Did you just move? No response. He reached out slowly, pressing his gloved hand against the surface. It gave slightly, like touching something that was trying very hard to pretend it wasn't alive. Okay, he said calmly. That's new. I don't like new. The wall pulsed once beneath his hand, then stilled. He pulled back immediately. Nope, that's enough interaction for today. Another flicker crossed his mind, sharper this time. A sensation of curiosity, not his own. Something observing him the way he was observing everything else. He closed his eyes briefly, steadying himself. You're imagining things, he said. External neural interference likely, the system replied. That is the opposite of reassuring. He opened his eyes and looked ahead. The passage stretched on, deeper into the structure, into something vast and unknowable. He adjusted his grip on his weapon, though it suddenly felt less useful than it had a few minutes ago. All right, he said quietly. If something's watching, just know I'm very disappointing up close. The faintest ripple of something, almost like amusement, touched his mind. He frowned. Did you just react to that? He stood very still after that faint, impossible ripple of amusement, like someone who had just told a joke and wasn't sure if the audience was about to laugh or erase him from existence. His grip tightened slightly on the weapon, not out of fear. He refused to label it that, but out of a professional preference for not being unarmed in conversations with sentient architecture. All right, he said quietly. If that was you, I'd appreciate a little less mind-touching. Silence followed. Not empty silence. This place didn't seem capable of that, but a dense, waiting kind. The walls pulsed faintly again, slower now, more measured, as if adjusting to his presence instead of reacting to it. Then it happened again. Not a voice, not even a clear thought. Just a presence brushing against his mind, closer this time, more deliberate. It didn't push. It didn't invade. It lingered like it was trying to understand where the edges of him were. He exhaled slowly. You're doing that on purpose now. The response came as a flicker, an image fragmented but undeniable. A horizon stretching endlessly, not in space but within something vast and organic. A sense of movement, of fleeing, of countless others moving together, not in panic but in quiet urgency. He blinked, the image gone as quickly as it arrived. Okay, he said, nodding once. So we're sharing now, that's new. Neural synchronization increasing, the system warned. Yeah, I noticed. He took a step forward, then another, testing whether the connection would intensify. It did. Each movement seemed to bring him deeper not just into the structure, but into something else entirely, something layered beneath reality or maybe alongside it. Another fragment reached him, not visual this time. A feeling, loss but not sharp, worn smooth over time like something experienced too often to remain painful in the usual way. He frowned slightly. You're not exactly what they described. The presence shifted, not defensive, curious. Let me guess, he continued, glancing around the softly pulsing corridor. I'm the aggressive one here. A pause. Then, unmistakably, something like agreement. He let out a short breath that almost became a laugh. That's fair. The connection deepened without warning. For a moment, his vision blurred, not physically, but perceptually, as if two perspectives tried to exist in the same space. He saw the corridor, and something else layered over it. Structures far larger, older, stretching across distances that didn't make sense. Not one place, but many, all connected through a single awareness. He staggered slightly, catching himself against the wall. Okay, he muttered, that's a lot. The wall beneath his hand pulsed again, softer this time. Not reactive, responsive. You're not trying to stop me, he said, more to confirm it aloud than anything else. You're guiding me. The presence lingered, then shifted subtle but clear enough. Yes. He froze. You don't get to say yes, he said immediately. We didn't agree on actual communication. Another flicker of that strange, quiet amusement. He rubbed his temple. Great, telepathic sense of humor. That's exactly what I needed. He moved forward again, slower now, less like an intruder and more like someone trying to understand the rules of a place that didn't bother explaining them. The corridor opened gradually, leading toward a larger space ahead where the pulsing grew stronger, more centralized. You know, he said, voice low, this is the part where I'm supposed to be preparing to eliminate you. The presence didn't withdraw, instead it drew closer. Not threatening, not defensive, just there. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then kept walking. The chamber opened around him like a held breath finally released, and for a moment he just stood there, letting his eyes adjust while his mind tried, and failed, to pretend this was still a mission he understood. The pulsing he had followed now surrounded him, steady and immense, not loud but impossible to ignore. It felt less like entering a room and more like stepping into the center of a thought. Well, he said under his breath, this is definitely above my pay grade. The presence was no longer distant. It was everywhere here, layered and focused at the same time, like 1,000 quiet voices choosing to speak as one. And then he saw her, not with his eyes alone. She stood before him, tall, her form shifting subtly as if reality hadn't fully decided how to contain her. Light traced across her skin in faint, branching patterns, moving slowly like they were thinking. Her eyes held depth that didn't belong to a single moment, and when they settled on him, he felt it again, that connection now clear, no longer accidental. So, he said, clearing his throat slightly, you're the problem. A pause. Then, softly, without sound but unmistakable. And you are the solution. He blinked. That feels like a trick question. He raised his weapon, the motion automatic, practiced. It felt heavier than usual, as if it had developed opinions about what it was being asked to do. The targeting system aligned, steady and precise, waiting for a command that had always come easily before. It didn't come now. Instead, something else did. Memories that weren't his flooded through the link, not violently, not forced, offered. Entire worlds carried in fragments, not conquest, not domination, movement, survival. Again and again, leaving before something stronger arrived, always leaving, he swallowed slowly. They told us you were expanding. A quiet response, almost gentle. We were running. He let out a breath that he hadn't realized he'd been holding for what felt like his entire life. Of course you were, he murmured. That makes way more sense than the official report. His grip loosened slightly. The weapon lowered just a fraction. You know, he said, glancing at it, this thing has solved a lot of problems for me. A faint flicker of curiosity touched his mind. And how many did it create? He huffed a quiet laugh. More than I like to count. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was shared. For the first time since he had arrived, he wasn't moving forward because he had to. He wasn't advancing, infiltrating, executing. He was standing still, choosing. You're connected to all of them, he said quietly. Yes. And if I do this, he lifted the weapon slightly again, just enough to acknowledge the possibility. That's it, all of it. Yes. No resistance. No plea, just truth. He stared at her, at the impossible weight of what she carried, and then at himself reflected faintly in the surface beneath his feet. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then he exhaled. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'm not doing that." The weapon lowered completely. For a second, nothing happened. No alarms, no sudden shift. Just that steady, quiet pulse of something vast continuing to exist. He glanced up at her. "This is the part where I get in trouble, isn't it?" A faint, almost imperfect echo of a human smile touched her expression, slightly misaligned but unmistakably intentional. "Yes." He nodded once. "Figured." He turned slightly, looking back the way he had come, even though he knew the path had already changed. "So," he continued, almost casually, "if I don't complete the mission, they're going to send someone else." The presence shifted, considering. "They will not understand." "Yeah," he said, "that's kind of our thing." He looked back at her, the decision settling into place not as something dramatic, but as something final. "But I do," he added quietly. Another pause, then. "Then you will carry that understanding." He smiled faintly, a little tired, a little uncertain. "That sounds like responsibility. I try to avoid those." A flicker of that same quiet amusement passed through the link. He took a step back, then another, not retreating, just creating space. "I'm going to have to lie," he said. "A lot, probably creatively." "Will it be effective?" He shrugged slightly. "I've had practice." For the first time since he had entered, the structure around him shifted in a way that felt cooperative. A path opened behind him, subtle but clear. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at her. "This isn't over," he said. "No," she replied, the word carrying weight but no threat. "It is not." He nodded once, then turned and began to walk, slower than before but steadier. As he moved away, the connection didn't vanish. It lingered, quieter now, like a distant signal instead of a shared mind. He paused briefly at the edge of the chamber and spoke without turning. "You know," he said, "for the record, you're a lot less terrifying than advertised." A faint ripple of something, amusement, perhaps, followed him as he left. Outside, the planet felt different. Or maybe he did. Until next time in the stories, stay tuned.